I'm Polly Warren and welcome to the Positive Perimenopause Podcast. This is the place for some positive inspiration to help you through the rollercoaster ride of perimenopause. I truly believe that with the right support, knowledge and wellness tools, you can feel your best yet, because I'm learning this life phase can be a truly exciting and often pivotal time of life. With every episode, my mission is to support and empower you to own your menopause, because it's time to start taking care of the most important person, and yes, that's you. So thank you for being here and sharing your time with me. Now let's dive in. Good morning and welcome back to the podcast. How are you all doing? I am here in a very freezing cold UK at the moment. I did go on a beautiful dog walk this morning where the ground was so crispy and hard compared to the soggy, wet mud which we've had for the last few weeks. So that was really nice, and the sun is out, which is amazing. However, I am sitting here in 4 jumpers, a woolly scarf, my bobble hat, woolly socks, my slippers. I look ridiculous, but at least it's keeping me warm. So last week I had nutritionist Emma Bardwell on the podcast. It was a really popular episode so far, and Emma talks all about gut health and fat loss and how both of these play a role at perimenopause. It's a really good episode. So if you haven't already had a listen, you can go back and listen to that. Before I tell you about this week's episode, I just want to remind you of 2 things. The first thing is, if you want to get super clear on the best way forward and know exactly what your next steps are in terms of managing your perimenopause or your menopause, then my menopause support sessions, which I'm offering at the moment, are a really great way of doing this. If you want to find out more, I'll put a link in the show notes. But one of the things lots of people find particularly useful who sign up to these sessions is my advice on supplements. 80% of us enter into midlife nutritionally depleted, and this can really play havoc, particularly with things like energy levels. And quite often when I advise my clients on taking particular supplements and with certain type of dosage, I see very rapid results, particularly in energy levels. I've recently completed an advanced dietary supplements advisor certification. My goodness, that's a bit of a mouthful, which enables me through various assessments to work out the right supplements for you and the right kind of dosages. So if you feel that could be something of benefit to you, then please do get in touch. It costs £150 and it's a 90-minute one-to-one. The price will be going up after January. So if you want to get in now and book, you can book for February now, and I'll still honour that price. And the other thing I want to tell you about is my Facebook group called the Positive Perimenopause Club, and I'll put the link in the show notes. I started this just a couple of weeks ago, not even that, and already we've got over 100 people in there. It's really lovely, and everyone's being very supportive of one another. I'm supporting you wherever I can, and it's a really good place to accompany this podcast and ask questions, feel supported, get some positive inspiration. So yes, we'd absolutely love it if you would like to come and join. All right, on to this week's episode. Now, this week I speak to Dr. Lisa Petty. Now, we all know that midlife is a time when so many things change. Our bodies change, our relationships can change. If you have children, sometimes, the kids are getting older, they're changing, they end up leaving home. Your career might no longer be satisfying or is changing. And many of us, and I know I did, start to question why we're here. We feel an urge to create or do something, but don't know what it is. So I was excited to talk to Lisa because Lisa describes herself as a midlife alchemist. She helps women start to think about their lives in new ways. I didn't actually realize that is exactly what alchemy means. So alchemy means turning the mundane into something marvelous. Lisa got to this place as a result of a few things, including her own personal journey of midlife self-discovery after a 20-year career as a women's nutrition educator and a coach. And she also raised two children as a single parent. So Lisa has a PhD that's centered on the well-being of women at midlife. Her research doctorate made it very, very clear to her that the many social and cultural expectations on women to be, look and act a certain way get in the way of us taking care of our own well-being, which explains why so many of us feel so exhausted all the time. Her research clearly showed that we've bought into the messaging that we believe we can have it all. And this is the title of Lisa's book. But instead of feeling empowered and autonomous, a lot of us start to feel overwhelmed or confused and resentful because we're just doing too much. And after hundreds of interviews, which Lisa carried out, and countless hours of conversations, plus her own journey and the countless women she coached, Lisa has formulated a simple step-by-step strategy that can help you figure out who you are now, what's next for you, and how to take the important first steps in creating the life you want. All of which we discuss in this episode. So without further ado, please welcome Dr. Lisa Petty. Hello, Lisa. It's really lovely to have you on the podcast this week.
Thank you so much for inviting me. I'm really looking forward to chatting with you today.
I think a good place to start would be to talk about your PhD, which was all centered on the well-being of women at midlife. And I'm really curious, Lisa, to find out what was it that spurred you on really to focus on that topic.
So I had worked for about 2 decades as a holistic nutritionist and had conversations with women. And, you know, when you're in sort of the coaching world, your clients tend to be a lot like you. They tend to age with you and that sort of thing. And I noticed as we were getting more into midlife, women were having different challenges. And it wasn't so much, you know, the complaints like I'm gaining weight or I have no energy, I'm miserable to everybody I live with, I'm unhappy, all of that kind of stuff. It was, which are legitimate and real challenges. It was more, we would put plans into place about what we were going to do about that. And the women weren't following through with the plans. And so, you know, as a silly example, I would say, can you drink more water? And they'd be like, oh, yeah, that's so easy. I'll do that. And then the next time we get together and I say, how'd you do with the more water? And they're like, yeah, I didn't do that. So we put it on the agenda for next time, and they'd come back. I'd ask again, and they'd be like, "Yeah, it didn't work out for me this time." So after noticing this sort of trend, what is going on here? And am I such a terrible coach that I can't get women to, you know, follow through on the choices that they're making? Do I need more training? What's happening here? I decided to return to school and get some training in behavior change. So that's what kicked me back to school. And I got my master's degree studying the midlife experience for women in eating, what's involved with eating and how women choose to eat. Well, at that point, the research bug bit, and I thought, well, I kind of like this gig. And so I decided to get my doctorate, and I wanted to expand my research to figure out what it is that gets in the way of women taking care of themselves, period, across the board. What gets in the way of women taking care of themselves? And as I said, it was sort of a blend of what was going on in my own life, because my children were getting older, and you know, I had my children when I was in my mid-20s and then my early 30s. So my youngest, my baby, was heading off to university. And so I was going through this sort of, what is happening for me? What's next for me? Being a mother, an active, you know, day-to-day mother was so important. That's different. That's changing. My career is changing. The world is changing. So shifting gears was really what I needed personally. And then, of course, it solved some of those professional nigglies that I was having as well.
a very quick break to ask you to hit the follow or subscribe button if you haven't already. And if you're enjoying this episode, I'd be super grateful if you could hit those stars and rate it too. Thank you. Yeah, it's so interesting, isn't it? Because it really highlights the fact that we all play so many different roles throughout our
Yes.
life. So you start off as a daughter, and then it might change to a partner, and you might be as a sister, and then you become a wife perhaps, and a mother. And as we hit midlife, those roles sort of really start to change again, particularly if
Yes.
as your children grow up. And I think it can be a really tricky time of just wondering, what is my role? Who actually am I, the
Yes.
person beneath all of those roles?
So that's really interesting. And that was one of the things that came from my doctoral research is that, at midlife, which is sort of a blanket statement and it means whatever you want it to mean, right? The research says it's either the halfway point in your life and you'll never know that until you're done. I like to think of it as the middle point, right? You're not young, you're not old, you're in the middle and you're active and busy, but so many things change at that point. And it's like the tapestry of life that you've created is starting to unravel.
Yeah.
And it can be very daunting and paralyzing for some people.
Yeah. And did you find that for yourself personally?
Yes, I did. I felt like because I had poured my heart into being a mother, it was very, very important to me that I be home with my kids and that they had stability because I was a sole parent for most of their lives, and so I wanted them to have this sense of stability at home. And the choices that I made supported that goal for me. And so then when my youngest was picking out what university he wanted to consider, I was selfishly thinking about myself and thinking, oh, what does this mean for me? And what am I going to do next? And I recently wrote a book, which I'm sure we're going to talk about. But in the book, I talk about this experience of sort of being in the void, and it wasn't a frightening place, but it was this place of darkness where I was sort of standing on this, if you can imagine, like this tall tower of stone, and I was standing on it and I could see nothing. There was no light, no glimmer, no um signs. We're always looking for signs, right? And I was standing in this place of unknowing, and I was there for quite a while, and so I understand that, and not wanting. I had the luxury, I guess, of not having to feel like I wanted, needed to rush through that. Um, which I certainly appreciate as a gift, but just this what is next for me, and that was my experience of what is next for me. And luckily for me, there was this again, continuing with that vision, suddenly a paving stone showed up in front of me and I was able to put my foot down. And then the next paving stone showed up and I was able to put my foot down again. So it was really personal for me, which, I talked about in the book as well. But I think it's a very common experience for women to just sort of be in the void of, I don't know.
Yeah. I mean, I know for myself personally, it really hit in my early 40s, and I had three small children.
Yes.
I was a primary school teacher. I mean, I was doing it all. I was doing it all. I was a good example. I would have been a very good case study for you. I was being the parent governor in the school. I was running
Right.
half marathons, trying to be really fit and healthy. I was trying to have lovely, healthy home cooked food every meal. I was trying to be a wife. I was still trying to go out and party. I was doing it all. But suddenly, and it did feel quite suddenly, it was this sort of realization that actually I had this real empty feeling and actually felt very
Yes.
alone, even though I was in such a busy household and life was so busy and all I craved was a moment to myself. I felt incredibly alone, and just kept asking myself the question, like, is this it? Is this life?
Mm,
It's that realization, I think, when you get to that midpoint, or whatever we call midlife, it's that
right.
realization that, oh, I'm right in it now. I'm in life. I'm not kind
Hmm.
of working towards something. I'm kind of in it. is this what I chose? Well, it is what I chose, but actually, am I happy with what I have chosen?
Exactly. So if we could go back a little bit and talk about the findings from my doctoral research, which
Yeah.
became sort of the title of my book. So my book is called Forget About Having It All.
I love that.
And the subtitle is The Midlife Woman's Guide to Creating the Life That You Want. And so just to quickly go over that concept, so women who grew up anytime from the 80s onward, there was a book in the 80s called You Can Have It All. Sex, love, money, whatever you want, you can have it. And as you so eloquently said, having it all comes with a lot of doing, right? It's not just you have the family, you also then have to do the physical act, all of the duties involved with being a mother, being a partner, being a daughter, having a career. You were involved in this. There's a lot of doing. It's do, 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 do. And I think we hit the wall with all the doing, right? And that's part of the challenge. We're so busy doing that we're not being, right? I know this is a cliche, but we are human beings, not human doings, but we do, and we do, and we do, and we do. And I think what's interesting about midlife is when the hormones start to change at perimenopause, we we lose we lose some things and we gain some things. But I think one of the things that we sort of lose is that sense that of nurturing, and that we have to take care of everybody and do everything for everybody. And I have no scientific research to back this up, but I almost feel like, your estrogen drops and you just become more aware. It's like the fog clears and you go, oh my gosh, how did I think I could do all of this? How did I think all of this was possible? And at the same time that that's going on, there is this kind of meh, is this all there is? I've done the things, right? If you go through sort of the psychology of development, when we're young, there's the acquisition. You get your job started, you find your partner, you have a family, you raise them, and then you get to what Jung calls the afternoon, and you start looking around going, well, I've done all that. I've done those things that quote unquote were, expected of me, which is another conversation. But we think, oh, well, there's no more firsts for me. No more first dates, no more first kisses, no more babies, no, all of these firsts are done. I mean, well, what's going to drive me forward? What's going to pull me forward? What's going to excite me more? I have no idea. My vision for my life sort of ended, not that it ended, but just like I've ticked off all the boxes where I was supposed to get to by now. So yeah, it's challenging for women when we get to that place of I call it ennui, because it's more than boredom. It involves exhaustion, and it
Yeah.
involves a little bit of low mood, which we have to consider as well, right? That idea that our mood does drop a little bit and we get a little bit more pessimistic and a little less rose-colored glasses. And I think that's all part of the process. The challenge is nobody tells us about it. Nobody tells us that it's coming,
Yeah.
right? And that's one thing that I think as women we could do a better job at, is actually sharing. So podcasts like yours are great because we're getting that information out there. Listen, what you're going through is normal. And, you're not a bad person because you don't want to do everything for everybody anymore, right? All of these things that we think about ourselves based on the expectations that we have that outside of ourselves, and then somehow we took them on. You're not a bad person for thinking, I got to change this. I don't want to be doing for everybody anymore. And also, I kind of feel like it's my time or my turn, or
Yeah.
it's time to um, focus a little bit more on me.
Absolutely. And I think this is part of the problem, isn't it? Is that we then start to feel the guilt, that horrendous guilt, if we do start to focus on ourselves. And when we've been so used to focusing on everybody else, and you're being told, oh, you've got to look after yourself now, and self care is what you need. And, particularly at going through perimenopause, it is definitely a narrative which is out there, is that we have to look after ourselves.
Right.
It's incredibly difficult to do it if you're not used to it, because your brain has not been wired in that way. It actually feels incredibly comfortable, although you've been craving some time to
Yes.
yourself. So Lisa, why do you think that is? You did mention the expectations from society. Would you put it down to that?
Some of it, yes. So going back to what you said earlier about the
Mm.
roles, if you think about what is involved in those roles, so you think about what is the role of mother? Well, she's generous and nurturing and self-sacrificing. Children always come first. There's a lot of pressure in our culture to be the perfect mother, right? Which is ridiculous. Then okay, so let's put a pin in that. That's what the mother is supposed to be like. Well, what are you supposed to be like if you're the employee? Well, you're supposed to be focused on your job, and you're supposed to be focused on, if you. It doesn't matter in this scenario if you're self-employed, an entrepreneur, or work for someone else. You're supposed to, quote unquote, be focused and whatever. Different sets of characteristics, right? Kind, nurturing, self-sacrificing, focused, competitive, assertive, that kind of thing. Well, how are you supposed to reconcile those things? That's kind of ridiculous, right? And it goes back to this idea, again, developed in the 80s, where if you can have it all, including this highfalutin career, go get your education, get your post-secondary training, whatever you're going to do, show up in the workforce and act like a man, right? You need to go in, elbows out, make sure you're heard, make sure you're competing, make sure you're winning, all of that which is not feminine energy to go in and do that. And I'm not saying that that women can't be successful in careers. I absolutely believe that women must, and we can talk about my vision for how women are going to quietly take over the world. But is this sense that we have to be a different kind of person than what comes naturally to women, which is collaboration and communication and support. And yes, some women have more competitiveness in them than others, but it's almost like expecting everybody to be the same in whatever scenario you're in. But for women, we have this added pressure to look good while we're doing it, be perfect while we're doing it, always smile while we're doing it, and never complain. It's off the charts, ridiculous, some of the pressures that are put on women. And now, we talk about self-care and how important that is. Well, there's a lot of guilt and shame attached to that. And this came out in my research where women would tell me stories of how, they got shamed whether they engaged in self-care. So, and however you define that, it's another one of those words. Well, what does it mean to you? So some women think of it like, oh, well, when I go to the salon, that's self-care. And some
Yeah.
women think, oh, when I'm sitting in nature, that's self-care. So the judgment, I'm not judging however you interpret it. But what's interesting is that other people do. So if you think it's important for you to go get a massage on a regular basis, well, there will be people in your world who will judge you for that, because when you're off getting your massage, you're not putting your family first. You're being selfish, you're being self-centered. And then there's another sort of perspective where, well, if you're not doing that, then shame on you, because if you're not taking care of yourself, and this is what's really interesting, then you're not going to be a good mother or a good partner or a good employee. It's never about you. It's never about what's best for you. It's always this sort of criticism that's directed at women. No, damned if we do or damned if we don't, right?
Mm.
So the challenge is to figure out what's important to you and try to shut out all that noise.
I think that's exactly it, isn't it? It's really trying to work out the most important things and scheduling and making time for those most important things. And yes, shutting out all of that. It is noise. There is so much noise out there, but it is difficult, isn't it? I can think of a huge number of people who I know who really struggle with this, who struggle to take time for themselves because of all of the things that we've discussed. And I'm the first one to say to them, right, you've really got to put yourself first. And so I don't know what you would suggest. What would be the first step that you might suggest to somebody who does find it really tricky to shut that noise out?
Well, I think it's really important to become very aware of yourself. So again, as we were young women, all of these so this idea of you can have it all stopped being sort of an ideal or a freedom and became a responsibility, right? Now you must, not you can, but now you must. And this sort of being dropped in a funnel of all of these things that were required of us. And we never took the time when we were young women to figure out what we actually wanted. Do we want to have that career? Do we want to have the big house? Do we want to be keeping up with the Joneses and all of these expectations that we always buy new things? And so we just went along. We went with the flow. That's what was expected, right? Having it all, keep having it all. And we never stopped. We never gave ourselves permission to stop and think about, what do I want? Who do I want to be? And I think that is step one, especially if you're in this place of questioning and you're finding that you don't have time for yourself. You need to look at what you need, what you can let go of. And sometimes the easiest thing to let go of are those things that don't make you feel a way that you want to feel. So nobody wants to feel resentful, put upon, not appreciated, disrespected. So if you look into your life and consider the places where those are the feelings that you have while you're doing or being that thing, that role, that relationship, can you let them go? So start the opposite of shopping, start dropping, right? Just start maybe up with the periphery of your life and letting go of those things that don't add to it and in fact subtract from it. I think that would free up the space to allow more positive experiences.
Yeah, I totally agree. It's so funny, isn't it? Because I know when I work with people, the one question I always start with is, what do you want? And yet it's so difficult for so many. It's very easy for us to say what we don't want.
Exactly.
And often that's what we really focus on. But when we can really go right into what is it that we want, it can be very, very difficult. And so I like the fact that you said that let's just let go of all the things we don't want. And hopefully you will arrive at a place of something that you do want. So when we've discovered what we want, where would we go next?
Well, what's interesting is for those of you who are saying, I don't know what I want, I still don't know what I want. Here's a good hint. It's the opposite of what you don't want.
Yeah.
So start there, right? So start with that list of, here's what I don't want. And chances are pretty good you flip that over and it's everything that you do want. And then you just need to be more clear and dig a little bit deeper and sort of paint that picture. So the other thing to remember as well is this journey that we're on. It's not like there's a finishing line until the end, right? So I don't think we ever have everything that we want, because wouldn't life be boring then, right? And I think if we used our imagination now and came up with this vision of the life that we wanted to have, well, as we're approaching that, I'm sure we would start to have new ideas about what we'd like to experience next. So pressure off this idea of that I need to know everything, right? All you need to know is, what do I need today? What do I need today? What do I need this minute? What do I want this minute? Not necessarily coming from a place of need. What do I need? What do I want tomorrow? And focus again, not on acquisition of things and the doing of it, but the being of it. So how do you want to be? Because that also takes the pressure off of what exactly you need to do to get there. Because we always think, oh, I need a plan. I need to know what my next job's going to be. I need to know what my next career goal and my next hobby, my whatever. I need to know. No, you don't. You just need to understand how you want to be. I call that your North Star. Once you've figured out how you want to be, everything else just falls into place.
It's very much focusing on the fact that it's often better to travel than it is to arrive. It's the journey,
Yes.
it's the journey of doing it, and actually just enjoy the process of life and the feelings that we want to feel as we go through life. That's it, really, isn't it? It's
That's it in a nutshell. And it takes so much pressure off because here's the other thing. We have this culture where if you start it, you must finish it, or you're a loser, a failure. You're one of those people who never finishes anything. But what if instead you create a vision and you work towards it, and suddenly how you want to be shifts? And you're like, oh, I'm realizing now that that goal no longer suits me. It no longer serves me. It's not exactly where I want to go. So many people don't give themselves permission to shift course. Now, if you have a habit of starting and stopping, and that does describe you, that's a different issue, and you certainly want to be with that and figure out why that's your experience. But if you're heading toward this goal that is one that you think will allow you to be how you want to be, and it's not working out, it's okay to shift. It's
yeah.
totally okay to shift, and you can let go that expectation on yourself to be perfect and to finish.
Oh my goodness, I am on this journey so much myself. You have all these sort of goals of what you want to achieve, but I'm personally constantly reminding myself that I just got to enjoy every single day, every single moment, not about those final goals. And there are many tools that we can practice to try and keep ourselves in these moments of being rather than doing. What are yours, Lisa? What would you recommend? What do you do to keep yourself in that? Because it can be difficult, because we as human beings tend to focus on the doing and getting to the goal.
Yes. Okay. So there is a little bit of doing. So okay, the first thing is you totally have to you have to have awareness. I mean, step one is you have to be aware that there's a problem, and be aware that you have the ability to address the problem. So let go of the victim thinking, this idea that I don't have a choice, there's nothing I can do about it. There's nothing, I can't change anything. This is my lot. No, no. If you're breathing, you can make choices. Sometimes the choices are difficult. I'm not saying that, life is a bed of roses all the time, but you do have the opportunity to make a different choice every day. So an example that I have of that is okay. Again, becoming very clear on what your North Star is. And you do that by what I call mindful connection. So you have to really be able to get into your body and out of your head, because we again, this idea of solving everything with our brains is a very, very sort of 80s hangover way of thinking that is part of the corporate culture that is very masculine, right? We need logic, and we hear all the time women are too emotional. No, women are not emotional enough, because that's where our wisdom is. So we feel things in our gut and we know it in our heart. But our culture, these social expectations are that the brain logic rules. No, logic doesn't rule. I can list 20 things that I did because my brain told me to do that were the absolute wrong thing to do. And I didn't listen to my gut, and I didn't listen to my heart. And one of the things that I like to say is I sort of stand in the crossroads between research. Clearly, I like to know stuff. I'm curious. Curiosity drives how I move through the world. I love the research, but I also really embody the embodiment, the spiritual side of life, right? And I like when they cross over. And there's research that shows that the heart has learning cells. The heart has memory. The heart takes in information and sends it to the brain. Same thing with the gut. So through the vagus nerve, the communication between your gut and your brain, 90% of it starts in your gut, not your brain. That's why you feel things in your gut and it goes to your brain and your brain says, oh, don't walk down that street, right? Because you felt it. Well, women have been trained not to feel it. Stop it, your brain wins. Not true. I invite women to get back into their bodies, get to know those feelings again, get to know how their body talks to them, not only through what they're eating, which is how my career started, but how you make all of your choices. So learn how to tune in, get back into your body, feel your feelings, feel your emotions, feel the physical sensations, and allow in your own wisdom, recognize your own wisdom. And yes, use your brain, do your pro-con list when you're done, but take in the information the way that it is delivered to you. So we get into this mindful connection. We understand that how our body feels at any moment. And then we see, well, do I like this or do I need to shift it? And how do I shift it? And you find your North Star, you find how it is you want to be in your body. And then I like to sort of use this analogy of Michelangelo and when he was carving David and people, there's a myth, I don't know, who knows if it's true. I saw it on the internet, it must be true, right? That Michelangelo was asked how he was able to carve David out of that marble. And he said, David was always there. I just took away the extra marble to reveal David. And so if you think of your North Star as your David, and you're surrounded by marble, and you have a hammer and chisel, every choice you make is either going to help to reveal David or keep him covered up. And so that's really simple. Say, for example, that you want to release a little bit of weight. Well, sitting at home, binging on Netflix and eating an entire pizza and 2 liters of soda is not going to get you there. Your chisel sits on the coffee table. But if you instead decide to have a walk around the block, then you picked up your chisel and you took off a little bit of that marble and you're getting closer to your David. So there is some doing involved in the being, but the choices about what to do become much easier when you know what it is you want to be, right? So you can, then you just know. And again, no judgment. Sometimes pizza and Netflix is the answer. Right? But that's serving a different goal than finding your David.
I love that. Uncovering the David. I really do love that. But it's so empowering just to remember that we do all have a choice of what we want. We're not stuck with what we've got. We can change things up. As you said before, when you said that you were standing on top of the stone looking out and you felt there was a void, but then one step at a time became clear. And I think that's all we've got to really focus on, isn't it? That one step at a time. Find the next step. Stop worrying too much about what is way ahead. It's just one little step at a time, and then the next step will become clear, and then the next step. And I think that can take away a lot of the overwhelm of where
I have to
going.
Change everything, or everything's changing. My kids moved out. I just got restructured out of my job. My house is too big. I have to sell it. It's overwhelming. It is overwhelming. Yeah. So if you could just one thing at a time, one issue at a time, one question at a time, but then be with it, right? Just be with, how does this feel? Right. And it's a great way to make choices too. Do I want A or do I want B? Well, you sit in A for a minute and see how that feels. And then you sit in B for a minute and you see how that feels. And then that helps guide whatever choice you're going to make.
It's such a shame, isn't it, that we've lost that kind of that ability to be able to trust what we feel and that gut intuition, which I know that it's always been there. And I've always sort of said, my husband laughs at me because he's like, well, Polly, we're just going to make that really big life choice on your decision, on your gut. And I'm like, yes, we are.
Yes.
But whereas he's very different. He kind of looks at every single detail. He overthinks everything. And that's the way he does it. But I have actually always made choices and decisions on how I feel. And it then generally always does work for me.
That's wonderful. And I'm glad that you shared that, because a lot of people think, oh, I don't have any intuition. Yes, you do.
Yeah.
You've just ignored it. And it's just like, well, I should say it's the opposite of a toddler. A toddler will keep pulling at your pant leg and get louder, mommy, 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 mommy. Right? If you're not paying attention, your intuition is pulling on your pant leg. But if you don't respond, it finally says, okay, well, I'll just go sit over here until you call me.
I saw that you were speaking about our RAS, which is sort of connected to this in a way, which I wonder if you could talk to that a little bit, because that will really help guide us along this path as well, won't it?
Right. So for listeners who aren't aware, the reticular activating system is part of our brain that helps us survive, really, because when you think about all of the information that's coming to us all the time, the color of the sky, is the wind blowing? What is that I smell? Oh, there's a dog down the street. Your brain has to filter out the information that comes to you, or to use probably the wrong term, you'd go insane. You'd go insane. There'd be too much information and you wouldn't be able to function. You would be paralyzed by the information. So your brain picks and chooses and starts with, what do we need to survive? That's the most important thing. You could be strolling with your sweetie down the road and so engrossed in the conversation. And if a car comes careening around the corner, it's going to get your attention because it could take you out, right? And you miss what your sweetie said because we don't want to die, right? So this is the role of your brain. And it's wonderful, except that it creates habits. And so, yes, the survival things are all well and good, but then it sort of loses, it creates new priorities for you. And it likes to make things easier, and it likes to calm down your central nervous system. So the way that it does that is by filtering out anything new or challenging. Any new ideas could cause a spike in cortisol. It could cause you to, I don't know, quit your job, and your whole central nervous system is, don't do that. What would happen next? So your body, or your reticular activating system, filters out anything that's challenging, anything that's risky, and it keeps reinforcing thoughts you already have, choices you already make, opinions that you have, mindset that you have. And every time you see it again in your environment, it confirms what you're thinking. It validates your position. You get a shot of dopamine, which is that reward hormone, and it becomes more entrenched. So if you're trying to shift out and create something new in your life, you're going to sort of be creating in a bowl unless you break out of these habitual thoughts, beliefs, and perspectives that you already have. And that takes active looking elsewhere. That takes actively looking at the opposite political position than the one that you hold. And it takes so actually I should give an example in case people aren't still not clear what I mean. So the reticular activating system, let's say, for example, that you've decided that you're going to buy a blue Toyota Corolla. That's the car you're going to buy. Well, when you're out on the highway or doing your shopping or whatever, your brain is going to show you what? Blue Toyota Corollas. You're not going to see any other option. And you've had this experience. I know you've had this experience where you're thinking about buying this camera, that camera, and that's all you see when you're out and about. So when we want to create a new world for ourselves, when we want to get out of the trap that our brain has created, we do really have to actively look for other opinions. So listening to podcasts is a great idea. Going to places you've never gone before, great idea. Like if you could pick a vacation spot by, if you have the ability to flip the globe around and put your finger down and go there, that's the kind of thing that you need to be able to do in order to bust out of your habitual ways of thinking that keep you where you are right now. So it's really, really important to do things that inspire creativity, particularly for women, because we are the great creators. We are the ones with the womb. We bring life into the world, whether we have children or not. We are the great creators. And so particularly at perimenopause and menopause, when that part of our lives is shutting down, there's this intense urge in us to create. And so we in order to have well-being, we need to honor that urge, and we have to create whatever that means. So if it means painting a bedroom, if it means making your own Christmas paper or Christmas cards or whatever it is, we need to honor this creativity. And the more creative we are, the more creative we become, right? And the more that we look outside the confines of our RAS, the more open-minded we become and the more creative we become. So I'm sure I went a little bit off topic there, but
Yeah, no,
that's
yeah, I love that. I mean, I love that. Do you know, a couple of things there. It really made me think as you were talking about the activating system. It's a bit like social media, isn't it? The
oh
algorithms that you, once you're on one path, you're just constantly sent the same images, the same kind of content. So actually, it's making social media is making it almost even harder
yes.
to get out of that way of thinking because you're going to be constantly seeing the same sort of stuff. So we really do have to try even harder to change it up and point our Raz in a different direction, which is
100%. Yeah. And it's so true. Like if you're looking for a pair of shoes to buy somebody for Christmas, and you're looking at store A, well, suddenly you're getting that brand going through your feed. And if you share a computers or something like that, you're constantly trying to erase it because the person you're buying for, yeah, social media and the algorithms for Google and how it all works. It feeds whatever you believe, you're going to find more and more evidence
yeah,
for that
yeah,
every day. So if you really want to expand your perception of the world, and I encourage everyone to do that, then you need to actively look for it.
yeah. And the inspire, when you were talking about inspiring creativity, I love that because I totally agree. I think at midlife, so many women tend to either set up a business or they really
Yes.
go big in a side hustle and then they turn that into a business. And that, I think you're right. It's because we are that sort of creativity from, fertility, which is now not important to us because that's part has sort of we've moved on from that, is being put somewhere else. So it's really important that we seek something out which we love. It doesn't have to be a business, but it is just really
No.
fascinating that so many women do suddenly go, oh my goodness, I'm going to start a business. And I know, well, maybe because it's the world I'm in, but
Right.
so many women who at midlife, during perimenopause, during menopause, go off and set up their own thing, which is great.
Yeah, and it's interesting too, isn't it? How one thing shuts down in our lives, and yet we're like, oh, okay, well now I'm going to take up gardening, or now I'm going to, as you say, you start the side hustle because it's the space has opened up.
Yeah.
So it's really important. Yeah, there's a lot of crappy things that happen at perimenopause and menopause, 100%. Um, but there's also so many opportunities. And the most important again is, who do I want to be now? What do I want to do now? How do I want to fill my days? What is my legacy? And I hinted earlier about, I want women to quietly take over the world. I think that if women honor why we came here. We didn't come here to be told what to do and how to act and whatever. We came here to explore and experience and have the most interesting life imaginable. And I believe that if women would look at what their North Star is, figure out who they want to be, and honor that and be that and make choices based on who they want to be, because I think that's part of your soul talking to you saying, oh, you came here to do this. And if we can be authentic and if we can live an aligned life in integrity with who we want to be, we can shift the energy and make this world a better place.
We do. We need to do it. Women have this energy which can, all look at all the leaders in the world, not all of them, but majority of them are male. We women need to start taking some of those roles and shifting this real male energy.
And don't
And
do it like a man.
yeah, and exactly, we do it in our own way.
Do it, yeah, through collaboration, communication, through we don't have to do it the men's way. That's again part of the programming. This is how the world works. This is how corporation works. No, No. How do you best operate in the world? Go out and be her. And that in itself is a success, right? If you can go be yourself in the world.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I do think the pandemic really helped a little bit with that, in that suddenly we were working from home, a lot of us a lot more, and suddenly realized that we could do things differently. We could shift up our work patterns. And actually, there was a realization, okay, you don't have to be in a building somewhere else 9 to 5, and you can do things differently. I think that has helped. I
It
know
has.
some businesses are now pulling people back in,
Right. And
but
then we have choices, right?
yeah,
That goes back to choices. The challenge with the extensively long lockdowns, particularly in Canada where I am, is that it was a challenge for people's mental health.
yeah,
And so what we did, we were offered a pause um, to reflect on what was happening and how we wanted to move forward. If people are feeling still that weight, that heavy blanket, just do what you can to shift that. Because there are opportunities now, as you said, to create something different, and to be in a place where that doesn't ever have to happen to you again, where you're more self-sufficient, where it doesn't matter what other people say because you've got it all worked out. You know what you need in order to be happy, and to be whoever it is you want to be. I don't want to
mm,
say that it's happy because some people want joy. Some people, my North Star is peace. Other people want contentment. Whatever it is that you want to create for your life, now's the time to do it. And in as you said, the lockdown gave us an opportunity to pause and reflect. But I would encourage anyone who still feels like that is sort of suppressing them to do what you need to do to
yeah,
get rid of that, because it is holding you back.
yeah. It's all about alignment, really. If we're feeling any of those negative feelings for prolonged periods of time, it's probably because you're not in alignment with, as you said, your soul's journey, which whatever that is, that the reason why you are here on this earth.
Right.
And not to get too woo and spiritual, but that's what I generally believe. If you're not
Right.
in alignment, you're going to have those funky feelings. And when we can actually start, when you start becoming more aligned, that is when you're going to feel good. It's just tuning into those feelings and listening to them, because that is how you're going to find those next steps to take, I believe.
Absolutely. I 100% agree.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And what was your own perimenopause experience like?
Okay, so I had a great perimenopause experience. As I said, I was a holistic nutritionist for 2 decades. And so I was very aware of what my future could hold. And I always had regular menstrual cycles, and I always slept like a baby, and I was always reasonably even keeled. And I had just decided, well, when menopause happens, I'm not going to have a challenge with it. I'm not even going to know what's happening. And I actually was one of those women who didn't want menopause to come until I was 75. Like I know the health benefits of having the regular hormone cycles and all of that sort of thing. So I was in no hurry. So perimenopause was fine. I sailed right through that. When menopause hit, then I started to experience some symptoms. I would have what I called warm ups. I never had a hot flash. I would just suddenly get warm. I actually went to see my naturopathic doctor because I actually became bone chilling cold. So I don't know if other women are familiar with that experience. It's like I was cold in my bones. My bones hurt. I became so cold. So I went to a naturopath and was able to I had acupuncture actually to help with that, which was valuable. My lingering concern is sleep. So if I could solve that problem, and every day is a cha-cha, you know, sometimes I can't get to sleep at night. Sometimes I fall asleep, but then I'm up way too early in the morning. Still working through that. I'm not sure that that's menopause related or aging related, because those things sort of do overlap. But yeah, wasn't bad for me. I do have one more thing, I guess. I did gain some weight at menopause. that I didn't understand because I had never had any extra weight on my body before. And my goal for the new year is to be more consistent with weightlifting so that I can work on my body composition and get my metabolism stoked. But I do think it's important to understand that, yes, some people have a really rough go of it, but it's really important to do everything that you can. So that means take a look at your diet, take a look at your exercise, take a look at the people that you hang around. Your environment has a lot to do with it. Take a look at your mindset, your perspective. Think about your RAS. Do you need to bust out of some thought habits that you have? And remember how much potential you have and how much of your life you have left to do something amazing with. And don't let this period, if it's difficult for you, hold you back or hold you down. It's really important.
Yeah, and it's so encouraging to hear of people who really do have a very positive experience and don't suffer, because I think we forget that not everybody is going to have a terrible time. And I'm sure it's probably because of all your expertise in nutrition and, you're looking, it sounds like, you're looking after yourself, that it definitely helped.
Yeah, it's hard to know, right? But it did really help.
Yeah.
And the other thing I hear too is that difficult menopause is very much a Western world thing. So then you have to think about, okay, so what does that mean? Is it the television that we watch? Is it the movies? Is it the music? Is it some kind of cultural influence that's messing with our nervous system that we need to take a look at as well? Do we not engage in enough spiritual practices? Do we not connect with the earth enough? What are the differences between our culture, in the West and some of these other cultures who don't have a difficult menopausal experience? It's worth looking at.
Absolutely. I mean, stress is definitely a massive aggravator of menopause symptoms. We know that, as is lack of nutrition. So those are two big factors, which we can, everybody again has a choice how they can manage that. So that's a good thing. My final question I ask, Lisa, everyone on this podcast, and you kind of just answered a bit of it, but I'm going to ask you to pinpoint one more thing, is because this is called the Positive Perimenopause Podcast, and it is about making perimenopause positive. I try and give the listeners just one practical, actionable tip which they could take today and put into their lives. What would it be?
Look up box breathing. It's really, really important for resetting your central nervous system. So when we're stressed, we forget to breathe. So you can fool your body into thinking that you're not stressed if you breathe deeply. So a simple strategy is to cover one nostril, inhale for a count of 4, hold for a count of 4, exhale for a count of 4, hold for a count of 4, change nostrils, and do it again. And just do it. You can do this in the car. You can do it at a light. You can do it watching television. You can do it waiting for the pot to boil. It's something, if you get in the habit of doing it, you can calm down your central nervous system, and it should be helpful for you.
Thank you so much, Lisa. It's been absolutely wonderful to meet you today. Where can people find out more if they want to get in touch?
Well, so anyone who is out of practice getting in touch with their bodies and how they feel in their bodies, I have this free download on my website called the Wellbeing Check-In. It's sort of a self-guided lesson you can take yourself through. So that's at lisapetty.com/check-in, CHECKIN. My website, of course, is lisapetty.com, and I'm on all the socials at Dr. Lisa Petty. So should be pretty easy to find. And I love to engage. Oh, and I have a Facebook group called Midlife Alchemy. If you want to join there, we have great conversations. I do some coaching and we play games and that kind of stuff too. So lots of fun for camaraderie, companionship, and conversation.
I will put all of those links in the show notes.
Wonderful.
Thank you so much. Really lovely to meet you. And I'm going to enjoy your book.
Oh, thank you so much. I appreciate you having me on.
Pleasure. Thank you so much for listening to today's episode. Don't forget you can look for Lisa's book, Forget About Having It All by Dr. Lisa Petty. I shall put that in the show notes. I am so grateful of your time that you spend listening to this podcast. And if you've enjoyed it, please do feel free to rate and subscribe. It really, really helps. And particularly leaving a review. I would absolutely be so grateful if you could leave a review over on Apple Podcasts. And maybe you've got a friend who might benefit from listening. So why not share it with a friend? Right, I hope you have a wonderful, wonderful week, and I will speak to you next time. Bye.